In that moment, I recognized that my clothing was connected to bad working conditions in other countries. In that moment, I recognized that the car that I drove was connected to the destruction of the beautiful ecosystems that I enjoyed, and was connected to wars that were being fought in other areas. In that moment, I realized that I was contributing to the problems that caused another human being in front of me to not even have access to drinking water. So as Jen was saying, both Jocelyn, who I began to start speaking with while I was in Kenya, felt that powerlessness, that hopelessness of these problems being so big. How is any one person going to do anything about it? But the beautiful thing about that experience and that recognition was that if we were a part of those problems, if the clothes I bought, the food I ate, the way I got myself to school, the way I did, all the choices that I made, if those were contributing to the problems, then I also had the opportunity to make choices that would contribute to a solution, that would build the future that I wanted to see. I could vote with my dollars. I could make those choices consciously. I could put my values into action. So Jocelyn and I, not because we were necessarily the right people to do it, not because we had any experience, not because we knew where to start, but because to go home and do nothing was no longer an option. So because of that, 5 years ago, Jocelyn and I decided to start the Otesha Project. Made a choice that would change our lives forever. But a choice that came from this existential crisis, this crisis of values that made us search for something else. A way that we could live our values through our actions and that we could spread that to other young people across Canada. So now when I think about the Otesha Project and how Otesha means reason to dream, I think when the organization started, that reason to dream was that realization that in fact we all have far more power than we ever imagined that we do. But now what keeps me doing this work is because I see it in young people that I have the opportunity to meet all across Canada. Having visited over 500 different schools in the country, having spent time with so many young activists as I see them rise to their potential on tours and through teams that we've trained to perform, I see how much hope there is. And I think, especially for young people, this search for a values-based approach is what they're looking for. It's not just, if I understood the science, maybe I would act. It's not just, maybe if it was cool, then I would act. Obviously, all of these factors contribute to behavior change. But I think one huge part of that is that emotional reaction. And I see it happening. And I know it can happen even more as more and more people share their stories with others. So I feel very lucky to have had the chance to share my story with so many and to share it with you today. But I encourage you in this discussion, as we're looking at the values-based approach, to think about where that stems from. And as Clive said, our values are certainly within the environment which we have grown up in, and that's where they come from. But our strength and the unity that will come from sharing that, from sharing those stories and building one together. Thank you very much.